crystals have been used in practices and rituals and ceremonies and cultures around the world for as long as humans have been around.
And we're back again talking about Serenity Festival. Today I'm joined by Andrew from Stardust Creations, and he specializes in crystal jewelry manufacturing. So, Andrew, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually quite excited. End of the week, and very excited for the last push of the year. Just a few more months and the year is finished. So, Serenity Festival, you're coming up to set up a stall and you do something quite unique. You actually manufacture your own jewelry using crystals. So, maybe tell us how you got into that.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting story. I grew up with crystals. They've always just been something that has fascinated me and captivated my mind, and so they've kind of always been, as far as I can remember, something that's been part of my life. And about 4.5 years ago or so, my partner introduced me to a jewelry form or crafting form called electroforming. And she originally wanted to go into that as a little side project for arts and crafts for capturing organics, so flowers and leaves and that kind of thing inside of copper. And when she saw my passion for crystals, and I used to really tardily wrap my own crystals because I always wanted to keep a crystal with me. She was like, "No, this can upscale your own personal little thing for you." And when she showed it to me on her Pinterest page, I fell head over heels in love with it. And literally, I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I had done enormous amounts of research and then bought myself a couple of pieces of equipment that I needed to just start making something. And then I started making little pieces of jewelry specifically for myself, actually. And then a bunch of my friends were like, "Yo, dude, can you please make something like this for me?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it became this thing of where it just developed out of its own blossoming. And then somebody said, "Why don't you take this to a market, see if people like this?" And it was a huge hit at markets as well. And then it just became its own thing. So yeah, the business aspect wasn't intentional. It was something that took me by surprise, a pleasant surprise. And yeah, it's been a very beautiful journey of growing into that as well.
So, Andrew, I'm quite curious because I am also very interested in crystals. I came across crystals like maybe 5 years ago when I started my health practice. My teacher, my Swami, would give me crystals to just keep around the house for protection, some to like just boost your mood, some to align your chakras. Some crystals were actually used in healing and treatment. And when I go to a market, I always notice the crystal places and crystal people. And there's actually quite a lot of people selling crystals, and I would even say crystal jewelry. So, what makes you unique, and why did your store become a hit when I see crystals is quite common?
That's an interesting one. Personally, I think a lot of it I have to attribute to the story behind crystals. Now, as a small little side tangent, crystals have been used in practices and rituals and ceremonies and cultures around the world for as long as humans have been around. I mean, they've been literally everywhere. And I think what people really resonate with is the story behind the stone. So when somebody comes to me and they're like, "Andrew, what do you recommend for me?" There is both a little side of, okay, well, what is your intuitive impulse going for? What automatically calls to you? And then there's the recommendation of okay, maybe try this. And what is really, really cool is most of the time when somebody asks me for a recommendation and they see something that catches their eyes, a lot of, not a lot of the time, pretty much 99% of the time, that crystal that resonates with the individual has something to do with their present situation. And I think the joy for me is exploring that avenue with that individual. So, for example, if somebody resonates with a little black tourmaline or a little smoky quartz, a lot of the time they are either struggling with a deconstructive thought pattern or stress and anxiety, or they're a little bit too much in their head and they can't focus on the tasks at hand. And when an individual, and that's just an example, and when an individual selects a stone and they hear about it, I think that's where the magic happens, because the second they see that it resonates with their present story and it's like, okay, that's why I was attracted to this. The journey of introspection and self discovery begins. And for me, I put a lot of love and attention to detail and care for bringing that about in the individual. So it's not like you're just rocking up to some crystal shop and saying, "Ooh, shiny, pretty little thing." There's a whole story and a whole intention that goes behind that for bringing to light or bringing to awareness that which the individual may not always be conscious of, and then giving a crystal remedy, so to speak, for bringing awareness to that aspect of somebody's life on an integrated and prolonged basis. And I think that's kind of where the magic happens for me, at least.
So you're saying somehow the people can sense that your crystals are different, and then obviously talking to you, they get to understand the story, the background, your thought behind it, and that makes it easier for them to reciprocate and maybe be attracted to that crystal and part with their money for it. So that sort of makes sense. Now the healing part, because I understand crystals can also be used for healing. Like I mentioned, my Swami, my teacher, uses crystals quite a lot for healing and treating. So do you also incorporate that in your jewelry making?
I do. So I think what is really amazing to explore, and especially with the individuals, I absolutely love it when somebody comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I've got this and this issue. What do you recommend?" And my joy is creating a custom piece for somebody and being able to say, "Okay, well, somebody struggling with mental clarity and stress and anxiety, let's go with that." And then I would suggest a combination of crystals and I'd put that together as a piece that's not just one crystal, but it's multiple crystals. Sometimes it's two, sometimes it's one, sometimes it's multiple. But there's a lot of working with the individual needs of a person to be able to craft that remedy for them. And I find it marvelous to see how people react to that. And yeah, it's I don't know if that answers your question properly, but yeah, that the thought and the co-creation that goes behind the individual pieces is kind of what I enjoy doing most. And then exploring where the individual needs need to be satisfied. That's yeah, that's what I like.
I think crystals are from another dimension or planet, and they've been brought to Earth to help us rebalance. But that's just a story, old wives' tale. But I like there's a story to it that I like. That there's something about they're beyond Earth. They're like something really, really, truly special about them. And what about charging crystals? I've come across a lot of different literature that you need to charge or clean your crystals. They say like moonlight or sunlight or putting them in the earth. Is this something that's also important for you to charge the crystals? And maybe you can explain for the other viewers what that even means.
Okay. There's quite a lot of different practices that surround this, and there is merit to all of them. So, my personal favorite rituals or cleansing practices for crystals involve either Palo Santo or incense or some sort of smoke. So, either a little smudge stick or something along those lines. Otherwise, running water. If you think about it, crystals are like sponges. Now, if you are an extremely sensitive person and you go out into a shopping mall or into a concert or something like that, afterwards you sometimes feel like you've picked up a little bit of stress or overwhelm from those places. And crystals are pretty much exactly the same, where they absorb and transmute energy as they're working with us and as they go into those different environments, and they then require a little bit of a reset because we have kind of taken them out of their natural habitat, which is connected to Mother Nature. And so to replenish their energy and to help not only give them a little mealtime or a little boost of energy, but also to help them let go of all the stuff that they've absorbed. It's important to keep those crystals clean, because otherwise they become quite heavy and they don't work as effectively, or they kind of just stop working in that kind of sense. And a really, really nice way to cleanse crystals in nature is to bury them. Just make sure you put a little marker in the ground so you don't lose them. Otherwise, moonlight, full moonlight, is an amazing way to revitalize crystals. And if you can get to the ocean or a river or something like that, they absolutely love that, to let go of energy. And then when it comes to sunlight, that's a bit of a tricky subject. Water as well. Some crystals are very soft, so they might dissolve in water. Some crystals, like amethyst, are extremely sensitive to light. And so if you leave them out in the sunlight, you might actually bleach them. So it's important to tailor your cleansing and charging to the crystal, to the individual crystal, so that it not only serves the crystal, but also serves what it needs. So, for example, some crystals like fire, and not to go and throw them in the fire and leave them there for 10 years, because they don't like that either. But passing them through a little flame or a candle light is a great way to charge those that are invigorating and passionate stones, whereas water might suit a more intuitive and emotional stone, whereas some stones that are a lot more grounding like to be buried. So it's really depending on the kind of stone that you're working with that I would recommend a kind of cleansing. And that's why I like my smudge and my smoke, because that kind of does a whole bunch of different things, and it's tailored to a more wider variety of crystals, and it's much more easily accessible than, for example, waiting for a full moon or going to the ocean, or uh, taking a little trip out to the mountains. So yeah, it's dependent on the stone itself that I would recommend different ones. And the way you'd go about it is, I would highly, highly, highly recommend following your intuition. So, for example, a lot of my clients have noted when their crystal needs to be recharged or to be cleansed, the pendant or the ring will feel extremely heavy, and they will get that sense of being weighed down. And the second they go and cleanse the crystal, it feels like putting on a nice little energizing bunny kind of thing. So yeah, it's a very intuitive and personal process, and I would recommend individuals follow their inner guidance as to what that specific crystal needs. And there's some rule of thumbs, as I've mentioned, but again, for me, intuition is king. So listen to your intuition.
That is so insightful to actually group the crystals into different types. So there's the fiery crystals, grounding crystals, or earth crystals, and then basically use maybe that form of nature to help reset it. But the smudge stick is like maybe a universal thing. You can use it across many, many different crystals. But sunlight, a little bit tricky. You leave it too long, you're going to bleach your crystals. So I think you gave a perfect, yeah, you're going to potentially bleach some crystals. So that was a really brilliant summary of how to maintain, take care of your crystals, keep them charged up so that they can serve you better. So, Andrew, the key thing that we are preparing for is the Serenity Festival coming up in 4 weeks' time. So, this is your first time actually attending the festival, but why do you think people should come to this festival from your understanding of what it offers?
So, from what I gathered, I had a couple of friends who went last year to Serenity Festival, and they were absolutely blown away. And I was unfortunately not able to attend last year's due to just timing. It didn't work out. But this year, I'm really, really excited to come through. And I definitely think it's going to be a beautiful exploration of different practices and different ways of engaging with not only yourself, but with people and with life. And the whole intention, from my understanding, behind Serenity Festival is to create an awareness around conscious living and intentional living with the different elements of life that a lot of people are learning about now. And I think that this is, or I feel that this is going to be a beautiful festival and a gathering of people who are looking to deepen their, not only their personal practices, but also deepen their connection to themselves, and deepen the exploration into this world that is now becoming a little bit more accessible to people.
Amazing. And what special things are you offering? I know obviously you got your jewelry that you're making that you're going to showcase. You'll have healing crystals there. But is there anything else people can expect from your stall?
Two things. So we've got a very interesting little surprise pop-up thing that we are planning for the actual activities that we're going to be hosting at the stall. I will be bringing with a nice huge bag of tumbled stones where people can come and pick out a little stone for themselves, and then I'll tell them a little bit about that, and I will take them through a mini little connection meditation to actually connect with the stone and set an intention for taking that stone forward into their day and weeks and life ahead. And I also am going to be offering little crystal readings. So if you know tarot cards or anything like that, it's similar principle, but very different in the sense of when you come for a reading, you will pick a bunch of different stones out of a little box that I've got. And what the whole intention behind that is to draw awareness to the different elements of your life that are busy currently unfolding and where potentially areas of focus lie, as well as to help guide the individual either in an emotional or a mental or a physical way to help resolve those things that are going on in their lives. So those are the two extra little things besides the jewelry and the crystals that you can expect at my stall.
That is so cool because crystals actually have so much depth to them, and we haven't really appreciated all the different, aspects of the crystals. Even myself, I've got a few crystal books, and I've got a whole bunch of crystals in my office and my workspace. But I haven't appreciated all these nuances and subtleties, and using them in meditations. And there's so much more to appreciate and to learn about crystals. So that's why it's great that you're the crystal man. You've been called by the crystals like since you were a kid. It's just been part of your DNA, and you're here to teach us all about this amazing substance because it's like not a rock, it's not a glass, it's like somewhere in between. It's actually quite a unique substance.
Yeah, if you had to look at a crystal underneath a microscope, the actual silica molecules are living organisms. They move incredibly slow, so to our naked eye, they may look like something that is solid and immobile or something that is inert. But over time, they actually do move, they grow, they shift, and they change, even out of the ground. And what's really cool is, I mean, watches have used quartz crystals for decades to keep time. They literally vibrate at a very specific and stable frequency. And so they literally can be seen as, or they are living organisms that interact with us and evoke certain emotions and feelings and thought patterns in us. And it's amazing to actually dive into that world a little bit and get to engage with something that Mother Nature has created over time spans that us as humans can't even begin to comprehend.
That is truly amazing. And you just made another light bulb go up in my head because I've been seeing the quartz label on watches my entire life. So you're telling me every single one of those watches has a crystal in there, and that's how the watch is keeping its time.
Not all of them, not all of them, but there are a lot of watches, and it used to. Now they've moved over to an atomic thing to keep the world standard time. But quartz crystals for a long time was used as a insanely precise method of keeping time, not only in watches but on a global scale as well.
Gee, that is fascinating. So you hear that, guys? So much of information that Andrew has on crystals and how they can help enhance your life, change your life, improve your life. So come to Serenity Festival, look for Andrew at Stardust Creations, and find the stone that resonates with you. Andrew, we look forward to catching up with you at Serenity Festival, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you kindly for having me.
Amazing. Till later. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.